Right now in the Eastern Conference Finals, the series is tied 1-1. The Hawks won game 1, and in game 2, the Milwaukee Bucks put a beatdown on Atlanta. So now we're at a really important moment where we kind of have to ask ourselves, will this be a good series or not? Is game 1 the template, or is game 2 what's going to carry on and continue throughout this series? By the way, I don't really care who wins. Not really. I like Atlanta. I probably am partial to Atlanta. I like Trae Young. I like their story. But at the end of the day, all I really want is good, competitive, high-level basketball. And in game 1, we got that. Game 1, people said Atlanta, in fact, pulled off an upset. Atlanta won game 1, 116-113. It was back and forth the entire game. Trae Young had 48 points on the road, by the way. Game 1 and 2 were both in Milwaukee. Game 3 and 4 are going to take place in Atlanta, back home for Atlanta. And also in game 1, Milwaukee did not play their best. Chris Middleton only had 15 points. He was 6 for 23 shooting. The Bucks looked undisciplined. They had multiple possessions that were just ugly and some bad basketball. The word that I think Charles Barkley used at halftime was they looked lackadaisical. They just didn't look, I think he literally said word for word, look like they're playing game 52 of the regular season rather than game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals. Meanwhile, Milwaukee's not having their best game. Trae Young was hitting step-back threes. He also was hitting this beautiful shot where it's a teardrop floater where on the run to the basket, drops it up and over. It's a beautiful shot. Oh my gosh, I love watching that. I love watching Kevin Huerter play with Trae Young. Their dynamic is really cool. So Atlanta won game 1. And then in game 2, it was a beatdown. Milwaukee tightened up. Giannis was driving to the basket, which allowed, when Giannis drives to the hoop, it really sucks in the defense. It creates wide open threes along the perimeter. Milwaukee made adjustments. They kept jumping the passing lane of the perimeter, meaning that Trae Young would try to swing the ball right or left. And as a result, Trae Young had 9 turnovers. Atlanta, as a team, had 19 turnovers. 4 of those were from the bench. So the starting lineup for Atlanta just turned over the ball a bunch. They did not have their best game. And a lot of that, part of it is because Atlanta wasn't their best. Part of it was because Milwaukee made some really good adjustments on the court. Trae Young also didn't shoot very well. He only hit 1 3. He was 1 for 8 from three-point range. And at halftime, Milwaukee had a 32-point lead over Atlanta. It was 77-45. Milwaukee ended up winning the game 125-91. That's game 2. Now, going into game 3, I have a couple questions. Really, 2 questions, basically. Number 1 is, can Atlanta keep this series competitive? Will Milwaukee win in 5 games? Are they going to win 3 in a row? And we're going to look back and go, I can't believe Atlanta won game 1. Or, hey, game 3 is a big deal because it's in Atlanta. It's definitely an inflection point in this series where we're going to learn a lot about the rest of this series from game 3. Is it going to be competitive or not? That's question number 1 going into game 3. Question number 2 is this. Will Giannis get called for a 10-second free throw violation? Basically, will the NBA enforce it? Giannis has this ridiculously long free throw ritual. It's kind of maddening to watch. Dude, just shoot the ball. And I get it. I'm sure he's got a lot going through his head. He's trying to get peace of mind and be in the right headspace when he's shooting. I have empathy for that. But also the NBA has a rule that once you catch the basketball, you have 10 seconds to shoot or else it's a violation. And then there's no free throw. It doesn't happen. You move on to the next one. And Giannis regularly takes much longer than the 10 seconds you're allowed. And it drives me nuts watching. And the NBA, by the way, audits calls made at the end of games. And they put out a report. Hey, here's what happened. This call was right. This call was wrong. And the NBA even admitted that in the report from game 1, they admitted they should have called a 10-second violation 2 times. 2 times in game 1, it should have been called on Giannis for a 10-second free throw violation. And the Atlanta coach, Nate McMillan, wants that to get enforced. And I'm with him. I mean, it's a rule. Why is it not being enforced? Why is nobody calling it? It's just weird to me. every time you can watch, you can count in your head every time he violates it. You're like, are we only going to call it if it's like 25 seconds really egregious? Because I would be, hey, every time we're going to call it. Now, maybe it's a slippery slope because they don't want the entire series to be determined by Giannis not hitting free throws. I guess if you do enforce it and it gets called every single time, maybe it diminishes from the basketball game because if he's taking 13 seconds instead of 10, how much does that matter? And if the series becomes about that rather than about regular basketball, does that take away from the game? I don't know. But right now, I'd love to see at least one game where it gets enforced every single time that he violates the 10-second free throw rule. I want to see that happen. Drives me nuts. Anyway, Game 3, Hawks, Bucks, Sunday, June 27th. That is, gosh, what time is it? It's 10:38 p.m. here on Saturday night. So I'm not going to say tomorrow night because you probably won't hear this till Sunday. So if you're listening on Sunday, the game is tonight. Watch Game 3. Should be really, really fun. And I'm interested. Will it be competitive? Will 10-second violations for free throws be called? I don't know. But either way, Game 3 is going to be interesting and should indicate a lot about what's going to happen the rest of this series.